Hi, Jason. How are you? Just waiting for everybody to hop on to get started. We got just a couple minutes here. Hi, Tabitha. Welcome. Hope everybody's doing well today. We've got just a couple minutes. We'll get started going here. I don't know how the weather is by you guys. We're in the Chicagoland area, and I'm telling you, it is so nice, warm, a nice break necessary from what it's been as of late. So can never wait for winter to get over here. Where's everybody from?
I'm from Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus. Okay, so you guys are probably similar to our weather then. Are you getting some enjoyable warmth as well?
It's torrential rain all day today.
Oh no, no fun. You need some sunshine. I'll send some sunshine your way.
I'll take it.
All right, so it looks like we're starting to get some people joining. So hello and welcome to the first ConnectWise Tuesday of March, new month, which means we're focusing on manage today. Is anybody here hoping to focus on something other than manage? You can do show of hands or likes on Facebook. We're kind of broadcasting in both places here for those that aren't here with Zoom. All right, so I think we're all good then on the manage front. So we have actually been doing for the last couple of months on the manage call just a series around projects. So we did one call that just kind of talked a little bit about, kind of the difference between projects and tickets, how to build a project. Now, the next webinar we did was around how to work inside of a project. So today, my plan initially is to focus on kind of the billing and finance side of the project, how to create a project template, and then any deeper dive questions and answers that you guys have around that. So I want to start off with, are there any specific questions that you guys have that you were hoping to get answered in coming here today? So I'd like to start with your agenda before we dive into my agenda. And feel free to, if you're not, I've allowed everybody the ability to talk, so you're welcome to unmute yourself and talk to us through this, or you're also more than welcome to just shoot a question inside of the Q&A as well as in the chat box if you're not as comfortable talking or you don't have a mic available. Thank you, Will. Will says, projects are silly. Why do people even use them? And it's lovely, Will, from our team here. So projects are actually pretty phenomenal. I'm a big fan of the projects. If you're not using a project management tool today, it gives you a lot of insight as to kind of how your project is progressing. If you have areas that things are kind of going out of scope from, if you're being really successful in certain areas and phases within your deployment. So there's a lot of value to be added there. I appreciate you asking that question, Will. All right, so if there aren't any specific questions, I'll go ahead and dive in, just sharing my screen here. Give me 1 second here. I'm getting a little bit more proficient at this. it's still not phenomenal, so I apologize, and I appreciate the patience as I do this. All right. So you guys should be able to see my screen. Let me go ahead and pop up the chat box here. So if anybody has anything to say as we go, please don't be shy. Feel free to jump in at any point in time and ask any questions that you have through this. This is the test project that we created in our last ConnectWise Manage webinar. So I want to kind of talk through the finance portion of this. If I can just see a show of hands or likes, hearts, whatever on Facebook, how many of you are billing projects based off of fixed fee? All right, so it looks like I got one. Okay, now how many of you are billing projects based off of progress invoicing, kind of invoicing as you go, which can be fixed fee or time and material? All right, I got one. And then how many of you are doing phased billing, meaning I've completed a section of the project and I'm going to bill you based off of that section that I've completed? That could be T&M, it could be not to exceed, it could be fixed fee, but it's considered a phased billing. John, you guys do all sorts of billing there. That's incredible. Okay. And how many of you are doing T&M billing? All right, so I have to ask, is John the only person billing projects today? I didn't see anything from a good chunk of you. So hopefully we're going to go down these different paths and you'll find some use in the different styles of invoicing. So the first one I'm going to dive into is fixed fee. Give me just one moment. Looks like we had a question come in. If we have a larger opportunity and customer is only giving a PO for a portion, can you win a portion of the opportunity instead of the entire opportunity? That's a really good question. It does dovetail away from projects, but the answer is yes. When you select one on your opportunity, it's going to ask you how you want to treat the specific line items in there, so that pop-up should come, and that's where you can designate which items were won versus which items weren't won yet. So if there are still open items on the opportunity, you can absolutely do that. Good question, Lisa. Okay, so talk a little bit about finance. On our project, what we initially had dictated is that this is a fixed fee project only to bill when closed. So let me go and start with making sure that that's still lined up properly. So I'm going to go into my finance tab. The finance tab of your project is going to control how your invoicing comes through. So I have this $3,500 for 50 hours here. Okay, it's a pretty cheap fixed fee there on my end. But we are going to make sure that this says bill this project only after it's been closed. With that check mark there, which I need to save, if I navigate to my finance module, how many of you here actually do the invoicing or versus having like your accounting department? Anybody here responsible? Show of hands. John is. That's John. That makes a lot of sense as to why your hand's up for so many of these invoices. That makes sense. Give me a like or a heart, like a thumbs up or a heart on Facebook if you're watching and following on Facebook. If you're the one responsible for the invoicing within your business as well. All right. So I'm going to come to the invoicing screen here. And for some of you, this might be the first time seeing what it looks like in the accounting world, in your bookkeeper, accounts payable, office manager, whoever is responsible for that. If it's not you, you may have never ventured to this point. So it's kind of good for you to get that broad view of what your accounting person sees from the operational aspect of what you guys are pushing through. So it gives you a little bit more of some big picture stuff. So if I come here and I just hit the search button, we're going to see that $3,500 does not show in here. And the reason that it doesn't is because I told the project that it has to be closed in order for it to push through an invoice, okay? Because it's fixed fee, it means that the amount of time that I enter against my tickets in my work plan are going to be counting against that fixed fee if there's a cost associated in them, but it's never going to invoice more than what I told it to at that $3,500 mark, okay? So if I wanted to invoice this, I said that it was ready to go for invoicing. I would go ahead and come back to the front of my project, and I would click closed. Now what this is going to do is it's going to open this up and say you have all of these phases here. And with all of these phases here, you're closing the project. Do you want any of these to stay open? And how do you want the ticket status to behave? Now it's really important that you pay attention to this when you're closing a project so that you make sure that these are all done properly. In this instance, I do not want all of my projects or all of my tickets to be canceled. So I'm going to go ahead and change them to closed. Closed to me tells me that we've done the work and we've designated that the job is done. Canceled says that for some reason or another, we couldn't complete it, but between conversation with us and the client, it was no longer needed, so we just got rid of it, okay? And we can update this to say that all phase statuses are closed. By default, it check marks them closed, but if you had like a different status that you wanted to move them in besides the default, this is how you would do that in the masses. And then we hit save. Okay, so this project has now effectively been closed with 1 hour on it. So when we think about my effective hourly rate on this project, it is beautiful. $3,500, 1 hour. So now if I come into my invoicing screen again, and I click the search button, we can see here that $3,500 exists here. So how this gets turned into an actual invoice, because right now it's just showing that it's revenue that's ready to be invoiced. So what the finance person, or if you're responsible for it, can see is if we click on this, it'll actually show us the breakdown of the time entered, and then it'll show us if we have any expenses or products that's going against this project as well that's contributing to the invoice, okay? We can see where the time lives on the ticket as well within that project. So if we have to do some sort of audit or reconciliation and fixing of something, if something maybe came through inaccurately, it's really easy to drill down into. So now that I'm ready to invoice, I'm going to drop down my actions and I'm going to say create invoice. This is going to bring us to this screen. Now this screen we do when we're doing kind of a one-off invoice. If we were invoicing in the masses, back on the main invoicing screen, I would have selected all of the ones that I wanted and said create invoice, and it would have created multiple invoices, and we would have never seen this screen here. This is just showing you how many hours, what that billable dollar amount is, and then how much that invoice is actually going to be for, and that's for $3,500. If I wanted to make this a custom invoice number, I could at this point. However, if I leave it blank, the system's just going to assume to make it the invoice number that's next in line sequentially with the last invoice number used. So I'll click continue. And this says here that for a fixed fee or add-on phase, a standard invoice is used as the final invoice for the project. If this is not the final invoice for this project or add-on phase, you should create a progress invoice instead of a standard one. Click OK to continue the creation of the standard invoice. So we're going to hit OK. If you're not familiar with your different kind of invoices, those live in the setup table under invoice templates. That'll give you some insight as to what those different templates are and how it's going to populate that visually to the client. Okay, so now that we've said that this is the final invoice, everything looks good. As we can see here, what it brings over is that it's a project fixed fee invoice template. We can drop this down if we wanted to and select a different template. Okay. We also have the ability to see that this is associated to, where is it? Oh, it's not associated to an opportunity. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click the print invoice button so that you guys can see what that looks like. I'm thinking that you guys aren't going to be able to see that. Let me see if I can put it in another tab here. Show of hands if you can see the invoice on my screen. I just want to make sure that visually that's still sharing for you guys. Excellent, thank you. So this is what our final invoice would look like as a fixed fee project, and this is what your client would receive. And again, this is all based off of your invoice template that you've selected to send out to them. So if you prefer more information, this is very basic and standard. So there's like really no information, but if you want it to show time entries or things of that nature, we can talk a little bit deeper if we have time today or on another call if there's interest around how to modify those invoice templates so that they are representing the information that you're looking for. If you're not the person that does the invoicing, there's a high probability that the person in your accounting department that does handle that likely has already made those adjustments and knows which invoice templates to select as they push them out to the client. So that's how we would invoice just for a fixed fee, okay? And that's a fixed fee that only bills after the project has been closed. Now, I'm going to reopen this and reopen our project just by deleting the invoice. It puts the funds back into the system. It shows it as uninvoiced, okay? And I'm going to come back into my project, and I'm going to come back and open this all back up, put it in progress. And I'm going to come to my work plan, and I'm going to reopen everything. As you can see, it's all in closed statuses. Let's see, can I mass update those? There we go. Phase status to open, save. How many, just show of hands, are actively using the projects module today? A couple of you, okay. How many of you have shied away from the projects module because you're not really certain on how to do it? Okay, so for those of you that raised your hand because you're not really 100% comfortable with using it, it is a beast to learn and kind of knowing and understanding. Please make sure that you go back into our Facebook. We're actually in process of transferring all of our recorded ConnectWise Tuesday videos to our YouTube channel, which actually I can post that for you. I'll post it in the comments here shortly for you guys, the link to it. But you can go back in and rewatch those videos where we talk about kind of the base preliminary of creating a project and how to work a project so that you can start getting some practice. The biggest piece of advice I can give you on projects is use it even if you're just playing with it. You don't have to actively use it with your clients right away or with your current active projects, but maybe an internal project would be a good one for practice purposes. The ConnectWise project module is a really great place to build out your onboarding plan for your clients, or I'm sorry, not your clients. Well, clients are a great one too, but even for your own employees. So if you're hiring, what that new employee onboarding looks like works out really well in projects as well. It gets your team familiar with how to use the system and navigate through, tickets and time entry and things of that nature. So if you have anything like that available, start trying to use the project module where it's not so client facing, but gives you the ability to kind of learn a bit more about what it does, because really it's all about muscle memory. Once you learn kind of the basic phonetics of building a project, working a project, it will seem really simplistic. I would say the most complicated part about a project is knowing how to set up the billing parameters on it. That's where it gets a little wonky, okay? So I am going to come in, now that we've got our phases updated, I'm going to reopen our tickets. Update ticket status we'll put those all in progress. Do I have it in progress? I do. There we go. You'll have to forgive me. We're in our CN-box, so you never know what you might find in there status-wise, if it exists, doesn't exist. While I'm waiting for that to update, it looks like we got another question here. So same items, different quantity. Can you do that as well? So if quantity 10 and the customer gives PO for 5, can you split it that way? So Lisa, when it comes to that, you need to actually split the product. So it has to be 2 separate line items. So you can say I have one line item that's quantity 5 and another line item that's quantity 5. You could put the win against one of those line items and leave the other line item open on the opportunity. All right, so now we are all set. Our project is ready to go. I'm going to come back to our finance tab. And let's say that I'm doing fixed fee progress invoicing, which basically just says that I'm not billing more than the $3,500 because we did it as a fixed fee, but maybe I'm billing in intervals of weeks or months. And so I want to be able to send an invoice when I'm ready to. It's really important that we have this box unchecked that says bill this project only after it's been closed, so that it can show up accessible to us in the invoicing wizard without it being closed. So now if I come to my manage invoicing and I search for that again, search, here's our fixed fee, okay? So to do progress invoicing, I need to open up my, my project invoice here, and I need to see what I have as far as time is concerned. I have this check marked. I drop down my action and I say create progress bill. And it looks very similar to creating the regular invoice. The difference is I now have the ability to tell it how much to invoice. So our work in progress or work in process bill amount is what it's looking for. And that's going to be determined off of this value here, okay? So we have here that we have $150 in work in progress. So I'm going to go ahead and put in this $150. I will then hit the continue button, and this will create our invoice as a progress invoice. So if I click the print button here, you'll see here now that it's telling us in our header that this is a fixed fee project for $3,500. However, we're billing only the amount available that has been used to date of that $3,500. So it's going to bill that $150. If I had $2,000 in there, it would bill $2,000 based off of the time. Okay, so it's whatever you put that WIP number value in, that's what it's going to invoice, so that the client is getting current invoices kind of ticking away at that fixed fee. But again, it will never bill more than that $3,500 that we set it as a fixed fee, okay? Questions so far around the invoicing side of this project? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna come to the delete. I'm gonna click on, I'm gonna come back to my project. Now, if I wanted to invoice the project as actual, okay, so show me hands once again. How many of you do time and material invoicing on your projects? Oh, no hands. Okay, well, I'll show you anyways. It's a quick one. So I'm going to drop this billing method from fixed fee down to actual rate, okay? And I'm going to hit the save button. So let's say that you have something that's like long-standing, you've been working on a project for a while, it's going to take a while for it to get done. You told the client we'll bill you for what we do as we do it, but it really belongs in the project module. You still leave this project only after it's been closed. Leave that unchecked, okay? And whenever you go to your invoicing interval, however much time you have in the system on that project is going to show up here. Okay, so you can see here it's $150 actual. All I have to do is click on this, action, create invoice, and it's going to create an invoice for that actual $150. Again, if I'd had 3 hours in, it would have billed for $450. Okay. And the invoice, again, looks very much the same. It's still coming off of the project. So from a header perspective, your client is going to see the information that correlates directly to that project. They can see that it was billed on actual rates. They put no down payment on it. It's a standard invoice. And it's going to tell you the work they did, what their work role was, what the value of that work role was, and then it's going to actually give them the time entry. Now, again, this comes back to the invoice templates that you're using, okay? So if your invoice template is designed not to have this level of granularity, then it won't be in there. If for some reason, if it does have this level of granularity, then it'll be there, okay? All right, so that's T&M. How many of you find that you guys are doing something from a fixed fee perspective, just show of hands or a heart or a like on Facebook, that you find yourselves in the middle of a fixed fee project, and then there's something that you had to pick up for the project that you weren't planning to have to get for it, or there was out of scope work that needed to be completed, and you want it to invoice separate from the project, but you also want it to stay with the project so that you, for trackability purposes, have something to refer back to. Anybody here find themselves in that situation or that scenario? Nobody. You guys are all so quiet today. All right. Well, I will show you what to do with that. That's what we like to call as a change order, and it works very well with phased billing. So I'm going to actually bring my project back to a fixed fee project that is only to bill after it's been closed. And I'm going to come to our work plan here. Okay. So now, if I were to say from a fixed fee perspective that I had what I like to call as a change order to this project, an anticipated billable expense or billable need for the project, for the client, in order for us to move forward with the project, I would create a phase specific for that. So I drop this down at a phase, and I'm going to just call it our change order phase. And what is really different about this and the other phases that you may have in your project today is that this phase bills separately. And so we can tell it all of its own financial information. So if my change order phase was comprised of out of scope T&M work, I'm going to bill you actual. It wasn't a quoted event, but we definitely had to go out of scope for it, and you're going to receive an invoice for that. If it included revenue from a product, regardless of what that is, you would make sure that you put this information in here. I am going to mark this as an actual for our add-on. And then I'm going to say that this phase can only be billed after it has been closed, which says when I'm done with this phase, I can close it and it will generate the invoice on here. If I leave both of these unchecked, it will behave just the same way that the project did, as we've been seeing back and forth in the invoicing module. If it's unchecked, it shows up as available funds to invoice. If it's checked, it will not until we put it to that stage that it requires. I can also tell it that I only want it to invoice after the project's been closed. However, for a change order, I don't want that to be the case. I may want to bill that sooner. So I'm going to go ahead and say actual rates and that this phase can only be billed after it's been closed, and I'm going to hit save and close. I'm now going to come down here and I'm going to create my ticket. I probably don't want to call that change order time. I'm going to call that out of scope. So if I open up this ticket, and let's say that I had to pick up, maybe I had to run a cable drop, okay? That generally is not something that's within scope of a project, and it's usually something that we find out well after the fact, while we're already on site. There was maybe something that was overseen during the site survey, okay? So in this case, I would come in and I would put in my product on this particular ticket, which is what's going to carry it through to my to my invoice, okay? And if I was putting it in as a cable, which I don't think I have in here, I'm just going to grab a miscellaneous product. And I can change this description, cable drop. Maybe I charged you $150 for that drop, and it cost me, let's say, $75. We'll do a 50% margin on it. Single cable drop, save and close. I also can come in here now and put my time on here. I click the plus sign. And let's say that it took me an hour to run that cable drop. So from 12:27 to 1:28. I want that actually. Let's still put it in for an hour. There we go. Ran cable as needed. All right. So make sure that my work role is selected properly. In this case, we'll leave it as telephony engineer and hit save and close. So if this work on this ticket has been done, as the technical resource, I am going to mark this ticket as closed. As the project manager, I'm going to audit this ticket, make sure everything looks good, and I'm going to mark this phase closed. Now, something for you to note is I added the product to the ticket. It will also show up here in our products tab. I could have added the product here if I had chosen to. However, this adds the product as a whole to the project, and it doesn't associate it to the change order ticket and the change order phase. So instead of invoicing when that phase closed, it would have invoiced when I closed the project, okay? So it's really important to understand the difference of where to add the product if you are doing a change order. So now that that's been closed, if I come back to my invoicing screen here, you'll see here I have a $300 invoice. If I click it, it's going to tell us that we have one time entry in here for 1 hour of $150. And then we have one product in here for the single cable drop. So if I come back in and I say action, create invoice, that is going to allow us to generate the invoice. And again, let me copy and paste this URL into the browser so you guys can actually see the invoice. I have a feeling I wasn't showing you guys some invoices. I'm so sorry about that. I forget that sometimes the pop-up windows don't show through the screen share. So now you can see here, it's got my time of $150 an hour. It's got my product. It's got my balance due. If I would have marked the product taxable, we would have seen tax on here as well. Again, this is our sandbox, so there's no tax table set up on it, so it probably wouldn't have calculated anything anyways. And then here, it's showing what this invoice is for. It's for the change order phase, for the out-of-scope ticket, and here was the work that we did. Questions on this so far? You all following along okay? All right, so I'm going to close out of this one. I'm going to delete this. And that is really the crux of how you would set up invoicing inside of your projects. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of take you guys through is through creating project templates and maybe some keys to kind of help with that. The marketplace has some really great templates already there that you can just refine for your own use. So I'll show you that as well. But first, it looks like we have another question here. Question is, can you add freight to an invoice? Absolutely, you can add freight to an invoice. I should have read your question before I deleted the invoice. I will create a new invoice. Action, create invoice, continue. So if you ever have an invoice and you want to add something additional to it, you just got to make sure that the invoice is open. So this billing status here is new, so that says that it's open. I can come to this product tab and click the plus sign. And if you have like a shipping product in there, you can come in and say that I was $22 in shipping, cost me $17, shipping was taxable, save and close. And come back to my invoice, click the print invoice button. And now you'll see here your shipping. Good question. Okay, so I'm gonna come back out of here, re-delete this, and let's talk about project templates. So you can create project templates a multitude of ways, okay? One is I could take this existing work plan. If I said this is built to spec of exactly what I would want for this kind of project every time, I would just drop down this more button and I would say create template. I give it a name. And save. Hit OK. Now where this template lives is if I come here to my project module and I go to project templates. It's right here. All right. So here's the thing to know about when you create a project template based off of an existing project, okay? The project is going to copy everything. So if you have time entries, if you have any kind of notes in there, anything that you have within that project as far as text-based information inside your project tickets become part of your project template, including date and timestamps. So if I came into this particular ticket, you can see here, today at 8 a.m., I created my time entry progress invoice, okay? And I did this all in preparation for our invoicing webinar today. If I use this to apply to another project, it is going to apply this information in here. So it's really important that if you do this and you use an existing project as a template, that you come in and you clean that up. Okay, so I just come in here, click delete, save and close. Okay, same thing if I come to my out of scope ticket. I know that there's time against that ticket as well. So I would want to delete that out too. Okay, that keeps it clean so that you're not accidentally putting information out to one client that was purposeful for another client, but not purposeful for them. Also, if it's September and I'm using this project invoice and there's a date and time stamp from March, it's going to be really confusing. So it just keeps it clean. So my recommendation is always go back in and double check your template. Don't just assume it's good because anything that you put in there data-wise is going to have a date and time stamp on there, okay? So that's one way to create it. Another way is if I come to the system module and I click on, oh, you know what? In order to show you this way, I need to open ConnectWise Manage first as a desktop client. So I'm going to show you the marketplace because the marketplace has a lot of great stuff from the partner exchange side that is really beneficial. And it's a great way to not have to recreate the wheel. So let me just get logged in under the sandbox in my client. But you do have to be in the actual client in order for it to work. So bear with me one moment here. And then I'll do a reshare of this as well for you guys. So you can see what I'm doing. Let me try again here. It didn't like my login, so just bear with me as I get logged in. Okay, it's loading. Almost there, guys. Sorry. Let me stop this share, and we're going to reshare. All right, so it is loading very slowly. I'm going to wait for that to finish loading. I saw there was a question, so give me a moment to pop that question open and see what we had in the questions. Where did my questions go? I've lost my chat box. All right, I'll have to re-find the chat box here in a moment. Let's go ahead and move forward with this, and I will answer your question as soon as I find that. My apologies. So, where is my ConnectWise Manage? It got moved over here. Okay. Show of hands if you can see the actual screen for me. Make sure that you guys are all able to see ConnectWise. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to come to the system module and marketplace. And everybody should have access to the marketplace. So as long as you're on the desktop client, also known as the internet client, okay? And if you click that marketplace, where it takes you to is what's called the partner exchange. And you'll know it's right here. You can always navigate to the partner exchange through your university as well. It's at the university, what does that actual file path look like? I want to say it's IT Nation is what they have, or community. I forget what they've listed it as now. Yeah, IT Nation, marketplace, and partner exchange. So if you ever just want to go to the browser and just kind of take a look at what they have, you're more than welcome to do it. However, you can't import anything into your ConnectWise unless you're on the internet client, which is why I made it a point to log into the internet client. So this here is a list of all of the different things that you can be doing or bringing in to ConnectWise. Now, what I want to be clear on is this is the partner exchange, which means these are uploaded primarily by other ConnectWise managed partners, MSPs, telephony companies, organizations that have kind of cornered the market for, they said, hey, we've put all this legwork in. We think that this has worked really well for our organization. This might work well for you. So some of the stuff that you're going to get, you're going to feel like this is amazing. Some of the stuff you're going to get, you're not going to feel so warm and fuzzy about. And that's okay. Whatever you put in there, you can take out of there. And they don't really give a really great way to preview it. You're kind of left to the device if somebody put the description in. But either way, somebody felt that the information they were putting out there was useful or beneficial for you, okay? And while a lot has changed with ConnectWise over the years in development, there's still a lot of the general aspects and base foundation of ConnectWise Manage that are the same as it was years ago. So don't shy away from anything that shows that it was uploaded years ago, because it could still be very valid, okay? And so This here, what I typically like to do, because there's so much information here, let's see, if I drop this down to 100, I still have how many pages? Over 4 pages, okay? So let's see if it tells us how many results we have in total. I don't think it does. No. So there's over 400 different things in here that you could be grabbing a hold of to bring into your system to help you. So I definitely encourage, come navigate through this. Don't recreate the wheel if you don't have to, okay? So I clear all checkboxes just by clicking the clear all. And then I come down here, and in this case, we're looking specifically for project templates. So I would click this box, and you can see it auto-populated. And so like this here has 4,400 people have installed this. It's been rated 4 stars, so it's probably pretty effective. This is for new client onboarding, okay? If you do anything with SBS Server, which I don't know if anybody does that anymore, this is one of those ones that's probably a little bit outdated. It's from 2010. Office relocations. They got all sorts of really great stuff. You do also have the ability, here's that new hire, like I was talking about, new hire process, okay? Let's say that we wanted to see if there was something for Office 365. And here we go, Office 365 migration. Office 365 migration. So we've got several of them. I can now sort these right here by recently added. And I can see the most recent one was just added last year in October. So if I wanted to grab that, I could say import. And then it's going to ask me to dictate what kind of project is it. So this is based off of my own internal project types. So I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to select implementations. I don't have a lot in here. You might have one specifically for like data migrations or Office 365 migrations or email migrations. So you want to select what's pertinent to your environment. And we go ahead and click next, okay? The project template record has been imported successfully. So now if I come here back to my project module and I click on my project templates, I'm going to open a new tab. Okay, so now you see here, we have that project template that we just imported. So if I click on this, I can click the work plan, and I can see what another company found value in for an Office 365 migration. And I can say this either works for me or this doesn't, or pieces of this work for me. And I'm going to keep those pieces, but I'm going to change and modify it to be my own and customize it to what does, okay? So they have continuous client communication, the setup for the client. All of these steps are in here, okay? So if you click into these tickets, do they have any tasks? Look at that. They have these wonderful tasks built out for you. This makes creating project templates a lot more simplistic. Now, me personally, I would not do all of this under a single phase. I would have broken this out into several phases, so I can do that. I can come back here and they have just phase 1 is Office 365 migration. It's very simplistic for them. They've got the budget hours in already, which is phenomenal. So there was definitely a lot of good legwork in here. So I would come in, I'd click the plus sign, and I'd say I want to create a new phase. And I'm going to call this phase maybe Office 365 prep work, okay? I'm going to hit save and close. And then what I'm able to do at this point is to actually come in and I can grab like this set up Office 365 portal and synchronization. I can grab this ticket and I can drag it into that phase. The setup client console in the cloud console, I can drag that right into this phase. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking an already existing project template that somebody's put a lot of great time, energy, and effort into. I've validated that the tasks line up specifically with the tasks that I would want my team to be using, but I'm building it into a structure that makes more sense for me and my organization and how I would manage that project. So we didn't have to recreate the wheel, we just edited it a little bit, right? It's like putting some pretty cool rims on it. So we would then take this, and how do we apply it? We come in, create a new project. So I'm going to come new project. Let's see, that said it was 17.25 hours. I click import work plan at the time that I'm creating the project. I can do this from a Microsoft project, or I can do it from a managed templates. I want to use the managed templates, so we're going to click next here. And then I would select whichever template I want. And ConnectWise has recently, within the past 6 months, created this filter by template name. So if you're using projects pretty extensively and you have quite a few templates in here and you're not familiar with this, I could search right here for 365 and it would pull that up so that I wouldn't have to go scrolling through looking for the project template that I was needing, and click finish. Okay, now let me throw a company on here. 17.25, use as budget, fixed fee, 6,000, project board. All right, I'm going to hit the save button, and it's going to take a minute. This is usually where I say get up and get a cup of coffee. For those of you that are here with me regularly, see I drink coffee all day long, so it's a great time for me to get up and get a cup of coffee, maybe stretch your legs. The template application process is slow, so just kind of keep that in mind as you're applying. It may not be that there's anything wrong with your system or your internet. It just naturally takes a little bit of time for the system to pull that in and make sure that everything's placed in properly. In the meantime, I have another question here from Lisa. Let me take a look at that. It says, if you win a quote with tax by mistake and make a sales order, can you remove the tax at the point of the invoice? Okay, that is a really good question. I believe, Lisa, you just need to open up that existing product that is causing the tax to come through and uncheck is taxable before you just send an invoice out while it's still in an open status. Any other questions that we have coming through so far? You guys have all sat so quietly through this. I'm hoping that this is touching point with things that you maybe had some questions about, or bringing some clarity to the invoicing process or the template process, and kind of walking away with some good info to help move you forward in the ConnectWise world. If we have customers that have maintenance that expires, how can we use either serialization or configurations to manage that? So Lisa, that would have to be a whole nother webinar, because you really have to understand the way that the configuration files work in order to do that. And that goes back to workflow rules. So I know we worked very shortly on workflow rules when we worked together. So you would really need to develop a workflow rule looking for that expiration period, and it creates the notification. This is taking an exceptionally long time. It does not normally take this long to apply the template. So my apologies. While I'm waiting for that one to apply, I'll come reopen our existing project that we have. I believe it was this one right here. And let's go to our projects. I clicked the wrong button. I clicked on the company name instead of the project name. I do that often. So yeah, all these years in the system, you would think by now I would have known not to do that. So if I wanted to apply, let's say I'd already created the baseline of our project and I wanted to apply a template to it, I can do that from the work plan as well. If I drop this down, I have the apply template option. And again, I just select the template that I'm trying to apply, and I would hit OK. And this would take that same time. It just goes through its application process, the process against the project for you. I don't know if this is going to go through, guys. My apologies. It's not normally an issue. What I would say here is something to keep in mind as you apply projects, and it's a really great thing as you're creating templates, is that every template you apply will not write over, it will only append. So if this one actually applies the template, which would be phenomenal, you will see at that point that our original template is here, like our original baseline project is here. So if you do kind of a combination project where you're doing something network oriented plus workstation build out plus new server, and you're kind of doing like this Office 365 migration, right? And it's a multitude of projects. You can have all of these built as individual project templates and apply one to another on one project and manage that all to the same project, and it will just append to itself. So here's our original phases that we had all the way through our change order phase. And then you'll see here it created phase number 7 and phase number 8 with the values in here, which changed our budget from 50 hours to 67.25. So it's a really, really great way to stack projects. If they're all kind of one project, but it's multifaceted, you don't need to have this massive combination template. You can use multiple templates as you're building out that project in preparation. All right, but our original application failed. What would have happened is it would have actually applied the same way this one applied. I'm not going to make you guys sit through that meter again. It just would have applied and it would have looked exactly like this. I don't know if it's going to let me do this because I have time entries on it. I'll keep that. Okay, so I was gonna delete them all, but I don't think it's gonna let me because we do have time entries on it. But basically it would have appended just like this. This total up here would have been 14 or the 17.25. And this would be phase 1 and phase 2. I think you guys get the picture on that. So definitely shoot me guys some info on what you're looking for in terms of information for our next ConnectWise Tuesday for Manage. That will be the first Tuesday of April. Next Tuesday, you guys will be here with Will. He'll be doing Automate. Third Tuesday, we'll be doing Cell. So if you have Cell questions, please feel free to join us on the third Tuesday of March because we'll be diving into Cell at that point. If you have thoughts or ideas of what you would like covered during that webinar, please be sure to email them to me. My email address is rose@beringmckinley.com. And then let me grab really quick the URL for our our YouTube that I can put out there for you guys. Give me one moment here. I know that I've got it in here somewhere. Here it is. Okay. Well, it looks like Ginger has been hard at work getting those uploaded. So you can see we have January in here. So we've definitely got some stuff going on. So let me get this out to all of you. So feel free to hop on that YouTube, see it, especially if there were sessions that you missed that preceded this area of projects. You're like, hey, I really want to better understand it. Those videos will be there. They're also on our Facebook at facebook.com/Bering McKinley. So you can take a look at them there as well. And then again, just feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have or if you're looking for any specific kind of insights. I appreciate the time that you guys spent here with us today, and we look forward to doing another ConnectWise Tuesday next week. Have a great day, everybody.